Alright, so the first video notes you're going to watch are going to be characteristics of life. So there are 8 total characteristics that we're going to go over. The first one is that all living things are made of cells. So cells are the basic unit of life. They can be unicellular or multicellular organisms. So uni means one, whereas multi means many. Okay, we'll go over this much more once we start getting into cells, but for now, just know the difference between unicellular and multicellular. Alright, next we have all living things reproduce. So they are able to produce offspring that resemble the parents. You're supposed to look like your parents. And there's 2 types. So we have asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. So asexual means 1, sexual means 2. The third thing is that all living things are based on a genetic code, aka DNA. So the inheritance of traits is carried on the DNA. That's why you look like your parents or you look like other relatives, because on your DNA are the different traits that you got from them. The fourth thing is that all living things grow and develop. So grow, hopefully you know this, means you increase in size and shape. Development is maturing over time. And then a lifespan. So all living things are going to be born or start growing in the case of a seed down here, and then live and then die at the end. So we have our seed germinating here as we go across, and we also have this showing a human, so as we get older. The fifth thing is that all living things use and need energy. So not only do we use it, we need it to live. So energy comes from food and is used to maintain the body. But as we see here, and here, there's multiple ways of getting food. So an autotroph makes their own food. So auto means self. So think about an autobiography is a book about yourself. So those are going to make their own food, aka plants. A heterotroph is going to eat their food to get energy. So these are animals. And this is whether they eat plants or other animals or a combination. So a decomposer is going to break down dead material for food. So things like fungi, they're decomposers. They break down other things and use them for food. The sixth thing is that all living things respond to stimuli. So a reaction to it is your response. So for example, when you get up for school in the morning, when you hear your alarm, you wake up. Or if you shut your finger in a door, it hurts. Or in the case of this picture here, if you touch a hot handle on a pan, your hand's going to hurt because it's hot. So we all respond to a stimuli. The seventh thing is that all living things maintain homeostasis. So homeostasis just means keeping a constant internal balance. So think about it. Your blood pressure, your heart rate, your body temperature, even if you go run a mile, your heart rate will go up, but eventually it'll go back to normal. Same thing with over here you see your pH of your blood, which changes, or your blood sugar. Even if those things change, eventually they're going to go back to normal. So homeostasis is your ability to basically go back to normal. So after you do something, you are able to go back to normal. And then the last thing is that all living things evolve and adapt. So adapting to long-range changes in the environment. So if the environment changes over time, the climate or the rainfall changes, eventually organisms will adapt to better survive in that environment. So right here, like it says, it results in better species survival. So a species is more likely to survive if they make adaptations as they go along. And basically what this means, and we'll get into this much more when we touch on genetics and evolution, but an animal that has a favorable trait is going to be more likely to produce more offspring, and then as a result pass that trait on. While maybe a wimpy animal that can't handle the cold weather, like these penguins here, is not going to make it far enough to be able to reproduce and pass his traits on, so then that animal will eventually die off, or the genes of that animal. And it takes place over a long period of time. That's really important to remember. This is not short term at all. And it involves the entire species. So it's going to be certain traits become favorable and keep working themselves into the population. It's not just one individual is awesome and keeps producing all these great traits and it's just his offspring that survive. It's going to be the whole species. All right, so now that you know your 8 characteristics of life, I just wanted to go over a little bit about your upcoming test, which is Wednesday, okay? So the material on the test, lab safety, I think we're all pretty good on this one. Metric conversions and lab materials, aka your glassware. We'll just stop there. And then scientific methods. So you should know the steps, okay? You need to know the steps. You need to know the proper way to do the steps. Now, we've been doing a lot of practice with this, so this really shouldn't be a problem. And then you need to know the characteristics of life. And if you remember from what you just watched, there's 8 of them total. So your test is going to include multiple choice, definitions, and short answer. And there will be 2 short answer questions and about 30 combined of multiple choice definitions. You're also going to have your true-false questions and some matching. And with the matching, remember we talked about qualitative and quantitative. We did those examples in class. Expect questions on those where you have to tell me whether a piece of information is qualitative or quantitative.